Consumers in China are no longer new and experiencing products for the first time. But as the country continues to modernize, the rules are still being written. So how are priorities changing for the Chinese consumer? Joining us to share some insights is INSEAD professor Michael Witt. Welcome to INSEAD Knowledge.
Hello.
For the last few years, Chinese consumers have considered expensive goods as trophies of success and been purchasing these items in large volumes. But given the slowdown in the Chinese economy, is this kind of spending likely to continue?
It is likely to continue, and even though the headline growth numbers for GDP are likely to slowly decline over the next few years, as China obviously becomes richer and then it becomes more difficult to maintain double-digit growth. Actually, there's an expectation that consumption levels in China will rise from a relatively low level, and in particular the growth rates of consumption in the next few years, for the next 5 years, are estimated to be about 11% per year. That's consumption in general. Interesting enough, if you look at the top items, luxury items, the projections in terms of growth in these markets, in these segments, is around 25% per year. So if anything, the growth will not just continue, the growth will actually be disproportional in the luxury bracket.
Much of this luxury spending is on foreign-made goods. Is the Chinese government doing much to create Chinese luxury brands, or will we see maybe more buying or acquisitions of foreign brands?
Well, a lot of this spending is basically on items that project status. And this is one of the reasons why it is so resilient and why actually there's such growth in this particular market, because more and more people are increasingly coming into an income bracket where they can afford at least some of these items. Given this signaling function, one phenomenon what you see in China is actually there tends to be an enormous focus and concentration on individual brands, in particular well-known brands. And well-known brands, it's very clear, for instance, in handbags, this would be Louis Vuitton. And consequently, the bag to have is a Louis Vuitton bag. One implication for that is actually it's not that easy, even if the Chinese government wanted to, and even if the Chinese government somehow could all of a sudden tell people, be creative, create luxury. It's not that easy to break into this market, because that niche of what is really prestigious and the bag that you need to have, that one is already occupied by very, very powerful, very creative, and very high quality producers that are situated in the West.
How is the Chinese consumer today changing, given the increasing disparity in wealth, a rising middle class, and also more sophistication and exposure among consumers in general?
Okay, there are a few items that are changing and a few items that are not changing. To start with the ones that are not changing, one is clearly the trend towards buying status goods that we have already discussed. A second element that is not changing, at least for the time being, is price sensitivity, or basically what is considered to be pragmatism in the Chinese consumer. People still have budget constraints, and considerable budget constraints. Usually they need to work a multiple of hours to be able to afford the same things as their American workers, because the price levels in China, while cheaper overall, relative to the hourly income of workers, is actually relatively high. So price still matters, and it is said that basically value or price is still more important than brand, and actually more important than quality at this particular point. What is changing, of course, is that over time consumers, and this has already started, first of all, they're trading up. So they are trying to purchase goods that, shall we say, are more attractive, offer better performance. And in addition to this, of course, they become more demanding, they become more sophisticated. So it's not enough, for instance, for a detergent to be able to remove stains, but nowadays there's also an expectation, for instance, that the packaging be attractive, that the smell be pleasant, things of this sort. These are developments that are not surprising, because we've seen it in other markets, right? So the trading up is quite normal. In this context, however, because of the price sensitivity or the budget constraint, what also seems to be happening in China is that you see more trading off between consumption in one area and actually then having the budget constraint, not being able to consume as much in other areas. And the result being that you might actually see trading up in some areas and even trading down or no consumption in other areas, just to make sure that the budget constraint is met. That's a bit unusual in the sense that in other countries, it depends on the country, but in other countries usually part of, at least of the trading up, is driven by personal credit, the availability of credit. But first of all, it's not that easy to get personal credit in China, and secondly, Chinese consumers prefer not to really be in debt. So the upshot of the whole thing is that dynamic kind of credit-driven trading up is a lot weaker.
Michael, thank you for joining us today on INSEAD Knowledge.
My pleasure, thank you.